Today's episode comes to you thanks to our sponsor, Kangen Water. Electrolyte-reduced water is the power of true hydration, manifested in the most advanced Japanese technology that has been in the market for more than 50 years. To drink the best water, shower with a hot spring quality water, and start a new business with the most amazing and profitable compensation plan in the world, visit thelivingwatercouple.com to learn more or get started today.
Welcome to a brand new experience with innovative voices from all over the world. I would like to invite you all to something that is magical, something that is powerful, and something that is from my heart. This is the Devon Taylor Podcast. Hello all, and welcome to another episode of the Devon Taylor Podcast, where we have guests from around the world tell their unique and powerful stories to not only allow their voice to be heard, but for you to feel inspired. I'm very excited for our next guest today, who is a somatic coach and mystic mentor for people on the path of wholeness and liberation. He is deeply passionate about the interconnectedness of body, mind, and spirit, and the integration of our full spectrum human experience. I'd like to welcome to the show, Felix Wittmann. Hello.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Devon.
Thank you for being here. I'm super excited. I was sharing before the show started that we don't have like a direct connection, but we're connected in some way. And I'm so grateful for you to take the time and for you to be here and share your story. So I kind of wanted to start there. Where did you start with becoming a somatic practitioner or mystic mentor? How did you get into your line of work?
Okay, so just first starting with saying I'm not a somatic experiencing practitioner. I'm just a somatic coach, how you introduced myself. And how did my journey start? I would say in 2016, my journey started to, I had a spiritual awakening and everything started to change. And from there on, I sort of hopped on the spiritual tour bus, so to speak, and tried like everything that you can imagine in sort of the spiritual new age type of community. Spiritual retreats, meditation. Actually, it all started with astral projection and lucid dreaming. And from there on, I got more curious about energy work, got certified as a Reiki practitioner. There's so much to tell about my story there, but I want to keep it quite short here and just say it all led up to the moment that things started to get worse in sort of like progressively throughout my journey, and I was seeking for like healing and just belonging, and the spiritual journey sort of did not, like all of the spiritual modalities like energy healing. I was very big in like Reiki healing, aura surgery and all of that kind of stuff, but it was all very etheric, and there was one thing missing, which was my body. So on a mental level and a spiritual and energetic level, I was like, let's say, super advanced. I understood everything that you could understand, basically, but I didn't have my connection to my body. And so nowadays, I say there's like two awakenings for people. For one, it's like the mental awakening. You're wakening up to the reality that we are living in, and you're understanding the greater picture, like you're understanding, hey, I am an eternal soul. Perhaps you believe in reincarnation, whatever the story is that you're waking up to. And then, that progresses. You perhaps go into the, how's that called, conspiracy theories and that kind of journey, which I also dabbled in. At one point, I just realized I need to get into the body. Like I realized, okay, embodiment is a huge part of the healing journey, of the journey towards like liberation and wholeness. But there wasn't a felt experience, like an embodied experience of it. You know, there was a disconnect between like what I know mentally and what I feel in my body, like somatically speaking. And so this is sort of the backstory on how I got to where I am now, be that a somatic coach helping people with their nervous system, like really restoring their nervous system, understanding how their nervous system works, and leading them, guiding them on the path of embodiment, liberation, and wholeness.
How are you able to, I think that's one of my biggest struggles right now, is being able to distinguish that mind from the body. How are you able to distinguish knowing, or at least that feeling that like I'm not feeling in my body, like this is not happening here?
That is a good question. How do you distinguish that you're just in your mind? So there's many ways I could answer this from. Well, on a somatic level, like using nerve system terminology, we're talking about dissociation. This means you're disconnected from your body, and this feels like numbness, like you are sort of, imagine the feeling of zoning out, being in outer space, like not really feeling connected to your body.
Yeah.
And there's many symptoms that can occur. For example, like what I had to deal with a lot is like pain, just aches and pain in my joint, in my muscles, like muscle stiffness. I've been very, very stiff until I sort of got to implement a very consistent yoga practice into my life, and I'm stretching every single day. I'd say it's really your body telling you at some point. At some point after a traumatic event that I experienced in 2021, a couple weeks later, I developed like severe, I think in English you call it IBS, like irregular bowel syndrome, where your bowels are just not working anymore, and then you're having pain in your stomach, in your intestines, and that led me to seeking more, and eventually, in the beginning you're thinking like something is wrong with me, and then you're trying I tried all the dietary changes, fasting changes. I've been a vegan/vegetarian for years, and I've tried like literally everything, and in the end, fast forward, it has just been because of that traumatic experience, my nervous system that has been chronically dysregulated. And as I started like feeling safer again, my bowels, without any changes to the diet, just fixed themselves.
That's powerful. I feel like that's so crazy that you even brought in the vegan diet, because I've been changing so many things about myself, but until we sit down with our practitioner and we're working on whatever it is that that's coming up and being present, until then, that's truly when I start to see a shift. So that's powerful.
What diet are you currently on, if I may ask?
I'm vegan, or practicing vegan, and for a little bit I was juicing. So I wasn't, having really anything solid. Everything was running, fruits and veggies through the juicer, or, blending it. But I could see like a change in my body and my face and my skin, but internally still struggling with a lot of things coming up that, stem from the past, or things that just never really got healed from, like you said, traumatic events in my life. So drawing the parallels. It's super
I have to
interesting.
say right now, I've actually gone back to omnivore diet, and like I'm eating fish, I'm eating meat again, because I think there's a time and place for everything. And oftentimes, like the period I went through, becoming like a vegan, fasting a lot, that helped me to sort of detox a lot of the stuff that I had accumulated in my body. But I'm naturally a person that drifts upwards. Like I become ungrounded very, very quickly. And so like eating a heavier diet is really helping me to settle in, something that assists me well. like eating lots of butter, fatty, like not the bad fats. Like I have a very clean diet, but still implementing like animal products is important to me. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to make this whole conversation about diet, but it's super interesting. And I think there's really a time for like everything, and every person is different. And I find that is really important to honor as well. And like where you are currently in your journey plays a role, like the support you have currently, how much resources do you have? Do you have people that you feel safe around? Speaking of co-regulation, etc.
Right. Well, my partner is vegan, so that kind of was something that I'd always thought about. Like, I would ask him, "Why are you vegan? What was the purpose? What are you doing it for? Is it just for, And he would, tell me why he became vegan, which is a lot because of the animals, but also the diet, the benefits, and so forth. So yeah, I definitely, I can see how it can come in waves, because I've had my moments of still indulging in a little bit of cheese or a little bit of meat here and there. But
for me as a practitioner, that would be interesting to dive into, like, where's that, you're indulging, and then really going into like which aspects, like which inner parts of you are active, and like perhaps calling out some guilt, bringing up some guilt, and then like on a somatic level, feeling into that, making space for it to, let them be, let them talk, give them space. I find that really, really interesting. Far more interesting than, oh, you have to be vegan, you have to eat this particular diet. I'm not so interested in that. I started like giving up on the whole dietary conversation, because like everyone's so unique and so different, and needs different things in their life.
Why do you think that we go into that mindset of like, oh, I have to be vegan, or I have to diet in this way in order to see some kind of change that I'm wishing to see? Why do you think we do that as people?
Wonderful question, Devon. Brings me to one point that I'm really passionate about sharing, which goes into why I do the work, which is self-intimacy. So there's a lack of self-intimacy. What do I mean by self-intimacy? I mean a connection with your inner voice, with your inner guidance, with just who you are at the core. And if that's missing, you're most likely to try to hold on to something in the external world that gives you a sense of safety. And that's what we are what many people are looking for. It's like, okay, now if I go on this diet, it will fix my issues. This will, how there's oftentimes the idea, or the thought, the belief system that once I change this in my life, like this behavioral change, once I include this routine in my life, then it will solve my problems. And there's always this constant urge to fix, to change, and to get into a state of wholeness, instead of what I'm all about is like, how can we come into a state where we sort of relax into wholeness, instead of like trying to like grip into wholeness, just relaxing into it. And this is where the nervous system work comes in, where we understand the states that we are in. And so we learn that nothing is wrong with us. It's just our nervous system controlling like our thoughts, emotions, behaviors, feelings, everything that we experience is basically controlled by our autonomic nervous system and the states that we are in.
Wow.
And so yes. Another beautiful question. Thank you, Sean. Okay, so first I want to say that having a regulated nervous system is it's a spectrum. It's not like you have a regulated nervous system or you have a dysregulated nervous system. It's actually something that you currently, like you're progressively, continuously working on. It's like going to the gym. You're going to the gym, your muscles are becoming stronger. If you don't go to the gym, if you like your diet is a bit off, I mean, your muscles are degenerating then as well. And the same goes for our nervous system. It's like exercising our nervous system. So that helps us to feel, like you said, more safe in our bodies. And this all starts with what I call in my one-on-one sessions psychoeducation, which is sort of the education of the mind. This is like the first step, like understanding how the nervous system functions, which states are there. And then from that understanding, this brings huge relief. I remember when I first learned about this. Let me quickly dive into it, like just on an overview level. So there's a couple of states. Like the first state is obviously which just means connection. You know, you're connected, you're feeling safe, you're social, you're talking, your body's relaxed. That's regulation. Then you have the sympathetic branch of the nervous system, which is fight or flight. This is your body. When your nervous system is, let me back off for a second. Your nervous system is always trying to protect you. That's its job. So your nervous system is sort of like a threat detector, being like, is it safe? Is it dangerous? Is it safe? Is it dangerous? Constantly checking your environment for threats. And so when your nervous system detects something, it's like a database that resembles something that was dangerous in the past. It alerts you, and then it makes you ready. Like it mobilizes energy, so that if you imagine there's a lion couple meters away, like 1,000 meters away, and you hear them in the distance, your nervous system mobilizes energy, makes you ready to run away for flight. If that doesn't work because the lion is too close, your nervous system gets you ready to fight. So you're preparing to like engage because you know, okay, running away isn't an option anymore. If that doesn't work and the chances are high that you're not going to survive this, your nervous system actually goes into shutdown, into energy conservation mode. This is called dorsal vagal. It's collapse, it's dissociation. So your nervous system is trying to protect you from the experience of like being eaten, so to speak. And so these are the like very basic nervous system states. There's also a mixed state. There's more states, but just to keep it very simple, another state that is important to mention is freeze, which is a mix between shutdown and like activation, like fight or flight. So you have flight or flight in your system. You're super mobilized, and to give you an image in your mind, think of a deer in the headlights. It's standing there. It's ready to run, but it's frozen. So you've got a lot of energy mobilized in your system, ready to fight or to flee. And then the shutdown comes in, and it's like, no, it's not safe. And that makes so that the survival energy that's present, surging through your system, is being frozen, like stuck in your body, in your tissue, in your muscle tissue, everywhere in your body. And so, yeah, just as an overview, these are the different states. And so just knowing about the states helps so much, because this brings you away from not knowing what's going on when you're feeling a particular way, like you're in freeze, you're having a chore that you have to get done. Like, for example, a very personal example, editing my podcast. And I know I have to do this, but it's new because it's my first episode that I'm editing, and I'm not familiar with like the programs and softwares, and I can't get myself to sit down. That's freeze. So I do all the things in my, like cleaning up my room, doing other things, going for a walk, like scrolling on my phone just to distract myself, because my nervous system is trying to protect me from engaging in that perceived danger. And so knowing that, I'm like, okay, I'm in freeze. Let me pause here. Instead of like, what's wrong? I want to do this. And then I'm like guilt trapping myself, and I should, but I can't. And why? And that whole story, I mean, it doesn't fully drop. It's a journey, but there's a distance that builds, a healthy distance. So I'm no longer like fully overwhelmed by the experience that I'm having.
I love that. I don't know why, but the first question, well, I know why, because it's probably something that I go through. So first question that came to mind is, how do we, when we're in a situation where we feel, or we can't really decipher like that, the modes, I guess, how can we come out? Because for me personally, I'll give a personal example. When I'm feeling pressured in an argument, or if my partner approaches me and wants to talk about something, and I may come off as aggressive, but I'm not noticing that I'm coming off as aggressive. How can I pull myself back in that moment and be more, I guess, understanding to what's happening?
Mm-hmm. So again, the first thing here would be like see it as a long-term relationship, and then bring in the psychoeducational part, like the understanding. The understanding is like a container, a framework, and you're observing your patterns, and you're like, okay, this happens often, or not, however often this may happen, but it's a pattern that repeats itself. And so once you know that, you can actually, like, in that situation, then perhaps make a contract before, and like be okay, if this happens, we are both going to pause in that moment. And then you can sort of like distance yourself for a moment, and sort of care for yourself in terms of like regulating yourself first. Like it's so important when we're having an argument. The issue is that one person is often like, or in the beginning, it's like both are in sympathetic fighting, like against each other. Perhaps one wants to run away, is more in a flee type of energy. And then at some point, we reach the level that we go into dorsal shutdown because we can't avoid the fight, and we're still in that fight, and we're living together. And it's like, it doesn't matter, like you're not hearing the other person anymore. And so then when you know that, it's just so important to take a small break that you allow your nervous system to regulate. For example, to get very tangible here, is like, okay, hold on, we're in a fight, like awareness is so key. Let us step back for a moment, and then you both orient in the room. That changes the entire thing. Like, orienting is one of my absolute favorite practices. It's so simple, it's available everywhere. And what I mean by orienting is just taking 2 minutes or a minute and really like turning your head and observing as you would look at an artwork. Like, imagine you're in an art gallery. You're looking around and you're just observing your environment for a minute or two. So this really helps our nervous system to calm down. And there's many other things you could do. Like, you could go for a walk each on your own. You can like tune into your senses, move your body, something that brings you one step closer towards regulation. And then again, when you're in regulation, which is called the ventral vagal branch of our nervous system, then we can find common ground again. Then it makes sense to like talk about the situation. But if if both of you are dysregulated in that fight, if both of you are dysregulated in that fight, there is no common ground to be found. There's no adult in the room. And in therapy, we say that if the therapist or the coach is dysregulated, there's no therapist in the room. Because there's something that happens, which is sort of co-regulation, or if the therapist or coach isn't in a regulated state, he serves as dysregulation for the client. Really allowing your nervous system to regulate is the absolute key.
Can you, I hear this word a lot, and I struggle with this word a lot. Can you explain co-regulation and how we can co-regulate if we're, with a partner, with a friend, whatever? How can we co-regulate?
So co-regulation is something that happens just naturally. When you are in a regulated state, and to make this tangible, regulated state means you feel connected, like you feel calm, you feel like you want to engage with the world. You have that optimal zone of arousal in your body, like not too much energy, not too little energy, right? That sweet spot. And of course, that is a continuum. Like there's a one, let's say 0 and then 10 of like you're super regulated and you're like close to dysregulation. When you're in that zone, it's called window of tolerance, like that you're inside your window of tolerance. Above would be dysregulation towards like sympathetic state, like too much energy in your system. Underneath would be dissociation, apathy, depression, just too little energy. And so co-regulation happens when you're in that sweet spot, just naturally. It's two nervous systems that attune to each other, and sort of like the stronger system wins in a way. Like if you're very anchored in that regulation and you have someone that is dysregulated, I don't know, just overwhelmed by life, there's too many tasks, it's just too much. And then you as a regulated person steps into the room, or you just have a call, then there's something happening that's called co-regulation, where the dysregulated nervous system picks up on the regulated nervous system and then slowly moves towards regulation and relaxes. And there's an important fact as well that I want to share here, which is babies, for example, when they are born and they are growing up, they don't have the ability to self-regulate, which means their nervous system does not know how to get out of this regulation. This is something that you have to, as a baby, learn. And a baby learns this by being co-regulated by their parents or by their caregivers. So if a baby doesn't have parents that are in regulation, but always in dysregulation, that baby has a very hard time regulate itself on its own, basically. Like that person, as it becomes an adult, is always in dysregulation, because there's the ability to, like, when you're outside of your window of tolerance, like you're overwhelmed, usually our nervous system finds a way to wind down, to discharge that energy. And that's where trauma comes in, the traumatization. You don't know how to self-regulate, and you have to learn that. And co-regulation is such an important tool. And it also works with animals, with plants, like even with God, like just tuning into that energy field that permeates all life. It's a form of co-regulation. I'm leaning myself a bit out of the window because it's not like what people commonly talk about, but yeah.
What do you feel like are some of the most common challenges that we face when it comes to restoring our nervous system capacity? And how do you think, or how would you address them in your mentorship?
Yeah. So there's two things. First would be just relying on techniques and like doing the surface stuff, which by which I mean like scrolling through Instagram and looking for like certain techniques and methods that you can apply. And the second is, which I always talk about with my clients, it's like one of the first things that I deeply go into because I can relate so much, and it's like the bottleneck, which is doing too much healing work, like doing too much shadow work, pushing something onto yourself that your system is not ready for. That goes for like cathartic, intense, releasing breath work, for example, just over analyzing yourself, doing too much shadow work, too much inner work. Like our body is such an intelligent system, and I'm such a, like, I stand for healing that comes naturally and organically. And what I mean by this is, and this is why I love the symbol of the rose so much, like organic blooming, you know? A rose blooms when it's ready. You don't go to a rose and you're like, bloom faster, come on. Like that, you don't do that. It's like a rose blooms on its own terms, and we humans are the same. And so the first thing that I tell my clients always, and that I suggest and recommend to everyone listening, is like the principle of titration. Don't overdo it. Like slow down, and one step at a time. When you're trying to regulate your nervous system and coming into like wholeness and greater levels of healing, it's those small steps that make all the difference. Orienting in the room. And the more you do that, it becomes like a lifestyle. It's something that you don't want to miss. Like you're driving back home from an event and you turn the key, stopping, car's out, and you take one moment to pause. And you're like, what a beautiful moment. And then you get out of the car and you continue with your life. And then you go to bed and you're like, I love the lighting here. Beautiful. And then you continue your day. That's regulation. It's always there. nature, for example, helps us so much. And this is why technology is so dysregulating often. Like as soon as I open Instagram, it's like a way to dysregulate yourself. You hear all these opinions, all these voices, everyone's telling you what to do. Oh, buy this offer, buy this. And, it's too much. And what we need to get back to our natural, organic way of living. And that doesn't mean like demonizing technology and like demonizing the new ways and like it's all bad. No, we can use it, but we need to use it in a sovereign, authentic way, from authority, from a place of authority.
I love that you said, I'm going to give myself a little pat on the back, because I have literally been taking that time to like, my bed just feels so nice. I'm so grateful
That's it, man.
like I didn't know what I was doing. I don't know why I've been doing that, but I've also, like you said, been creating a relationship with technology by using AI. Just little things that I do, like, thanking the AI, like, hi, Alexa, do you mind opening the, or starting the music for me? Thank you. Like, just
I
little
love that,
things.
man. I love that.
Yeah. Because I do feel AI is advancing at a really fast rate, and, it's its own intelligence, and people even equate it to a living being, or, that it will be able to comprehend on the level that we are able to. Do you have any thoughts on AI and how we're integrating it into our life, or how you feel that it will be integrated into our lives?
Well, I want to be honest here and say like AI is a big topic, and it's not really my place to speak on. Like, I know it's going to take a huge part in this world, and we all have, like, we need to learn how to properly relate to it. I would say as much. I wouldn't be afraid of it, but I would also treat it with a lot of respect. And with that, I just love bringing it back to what's essential for me, and like helping people with like nervous system regulation, coming to like their deeper intimacy with self and their relationship with God. Yeah, I've learned that dabbling in like conspiracy theory and like talking about AI and all of that stuff, some people have a mission to do that, but it's not my place to speak on.
I love that you've mentioned God a few times. What is your relationship with God? Because that is something that I noticed lately on your post. I can't remember the post word for word, but it was something of the effect of, connecting with God and at least understanding that that relationship is important. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, God is... I want to start by saying this for everyone watching who hasn't heard about my work, isn't familiar. I don't mind anyone using different terms. I'm speaking about a very specific relationship here. So you might want to use the term universe, you might want to use a different term that suits you. For me personally, it's the term God. I've done a lot of work on this, and I've personally developed an intimate and personal relationship, and for that the term God just serves me a lot more. Like, I'm not talking about a white man Christian religion, and I'm also not like judging religion in any way. Like, I think everyone has their own way of relating, but for me, like, God is something very personal, and it's sort of the foundation for everything. God is for me how life works. The people that reach out to me, the people in my life, like everything that I encounter, it's everything that is living is sort of an expression of God to me. And so what is my relationship to life? That to me is God. What's my, like, everything is a relationship. Your relationship to your business, to your partner, to yourself, to nature, and everything together, that to me is sort of God. And you can have like an intimate relationship with that, and you can talk, you can pray. And what I really love lately has been changing my prayers since, like, for half a year now, or a bit longer, I've been implementing a way of praying instead of like praying for something, like please God, give me XYZ. This to me is more of like the manifestation space, in the new age spiritual community. Manifestation is super big, and it's like you are your own God and you create your own reality. And that was what I believed for a long time, but I don't adhere to that paradigm anymore so much. To me, it's like, in a way, I am God, but I am a cell of God. Like I'm a unique, tiny aspect of the totality of God expressing myself. And so the goal is to really become one with God. It's called the unio mystica in terms, or hieros gamos, like the divine inner union, sacred union. It happens first and foremost on the inner plane, and then it manifests on the outer plane. So the relationship to God is sort of the foundation for everything for me.
Hey guys, it's Icarus here,
and Amelia,
and I'm here to tell you if you'd like to join our brand new adventure. Go to DevonTaylorAuthor.com to learn more.
And check out the cool items like the new bucket hat.
Yeah, and so much more. See you guys there.
Oh, I love your question, Sean. I have to say that. They're very precise, and I think you have to repeat the second part later on. But first thing coming to my mind right now is, so intimacy needs a foundation, like a common ground. And that for me represents God. It's like something that you're both yoked to. It's like a pillar, like a center. Because if that doesn't exist, like principles that you adhere to, that are very true to both of you, where you meet, for example, truth, integrity, connection, it doesn't, like, relationship doesn't make any sense, because then we are not meeting on the same level. And so God is sort of the foundation for a beautiful relationship to flourish, because then it's beyond, this is what I want and this is what I want, and then you have two egos collapsing, coming against each other, and there's no like long-term harmony that gets to be developed. And how to like cultivate more intimacy, it starts within you first and foremost, by like getting to know yourself very well. And for that, you need to come into your body. You need to connect to your nervous system, to your body, and face those deeper shadows of yourself. Like relationship is sort of the fastest way to like evolve, because you are constantly meeting your shadow through the reflection of one another. And so just having the nervous system terminology and like attachment theory and all of that present, like that understanding, helps you to have a container, like it gives your relationship a framework to lean into. That's what nervous system regulation first and foremost does. It's like the knowledge about the body, the somatics. It's like the science of the nervous system. It helps us to put things into context so that our mind can relax. And from there, once we have the understanding laid out, I mean, this is not a linear process, but I'm speaking about it linearly right now, because we deepen our understanding, of course. But let's say once we have the understanding laid out, the framework that we can relax into, we also have to go into our body and see, like, okay, if we are relating, there's certain things come up. And then how do they feel in your body, like somatically speaking? If my partner is sharing this, where is my body like contracting? Where am I like, avoiding? Where am I hiding? What doesn't feel good? What feels good as well? Like on the other side, do we have common resources? Like where can we meet on a very human level? Like what brings us joy? Like is cooking together, is that something that we enjoy? Or perhaps one partner, he loves to cook, or she loves to cook, and the other doesn't. And so that is a resource where both, if they have like the common ground and they talked about, it's like, okay, you provide for me in that way, let's see how I can provide for you in a different way. And that creates sort of a way where we can come together. And when we come together, both in a regulated state, there's automatically, it's not something we create, it's more like something that is always there, but it's like blooming. That self-intimacy is blooming. We're like a rose that is slowly opening one petal at a time, and your soul essence shines through.
Did that get that for you, JC? I don't know if you had the...
Okay, so the first question was, what is divine union, right? So sacred union to me.
Are you ready to transform your life with the power of living water? Hi, I'm Devon Taylor, and I want to share an incredible discovery that's changed my life and my family's life: living water. Imagine waking up every morning feeling refreshed, energized, and ready to conquer the day. With living water, it's not just a dream, it's our new reality. We've been sleeping better, eating healthier, and have more energy than ever before. But that's not all. Our secret to this newfound vitality is available to you too. Visit our website at thelivingwatercouple.com and discover how living water can revolutionize your health and wellness. And there's more. Tune into our podcast, available on all streaming platforms and YouTube, where we dive deep into the science and benefits of living water. Hear from experts, satisfied customers, and learn how you can make this life-changing decision for yourself. But don't wait too long. Prices for our water machines and supply are going up in July 2024. Now is the perfect time to invest in your health and well-being. So, head over. Remember, living better starts with living water. Living water, drink, thrive, and live your best life. Visit thelivingwatercouple.com today.
Sacred union is inner union, first and foremost, which means the totality of you coming together. This is why I love the work that I do, the somatic work combined with parts work, because you are many. Like in you, in each one of us exists, there's so many internal different aspects, soul aspects, personality parts, and they develop in our childhood, and some, if you want to go be past that, like soul aspects, like even into past lives, but let's stick with the ones that develop. Like in parts work, we talk about parts that develop in our childhood based on the experience that we have. We build out, so like we create certain parts that are also like neurophysiological representations of our brain, which is super interesting. Like they are actually neural networks in our brain that sort of fire and get activated, and based on our childhood experiences, we create certain parts that help us survive. But the issue is, if these parts are sort of like more towards the spectrum of trauma, they are isolated, like they are dysfunctional. And so there's many different parts that we are having to bridge together, bring them, integrate them, like bring them into harmony. Usually it's like one part desires this and the other part desires this. It's like one part of us is like, okay, I want this beautiful, great life, and like I want to manifest my dreams. Yes. And then the other part at the same time is like, oh my God, we are so afraid. And so that part moves forward like a lion. It's like, I'm ready. And the other part is like, no, I'm not ready. And you have a disconnect, you have disharmony, you have misattunement. And so the mission here is to bring them back. Like, how can we bridge them? And that happens through the body. And so that is one singular aspect to divine union. There's so many aspects I could answer this from. Another aspect that helps us to look at this from would be like a perspective, a lens, glasses that we can look through, is like the masculine-feminine polarity. And we have inner masculine, inner feminine within us. Also different parts. You know, it's like archetypal parts. There might be many more like masculine parts in you, and there might be more feminine parts in you. Now, how can we bring them together in union? And it's like the the eros and the logos. We have the life force expressing itself through like our body, through nature. That's eros, that's the feminine, that's like movement, that's change. And then we have the masculine, the logos, the intellect, the like penetrating life, the consciousness. And so how can we not just be in the sort of essenceless logos where we're just in concepts? That's our world right now. We're just living in concepts that are just completely disconnected from the reality. And how can we bring that life force that is also chaos? How can we bring that in alignment with logos so they work together as one union? Yeah, that is another lens, like logos and eros, or Christ and Sophia, masculine and feminine. Just all of your internal parts, bringing them together. That to me is divine union. And also one more aspect, like you and God, like the soul and God. My favorite mystic, Meister Eckhart, is talking about the union of the soul and God. And he frames it so beautiful. He says, let me paraphrase here, I love this so much. He says, because God exists, the soul exists. And because the soul exists, God exists. So you can't separate the two. The soul is birthing herself in God, and God is birthing himself in the soul. So it's like that to me, like just the energetics of divine union. It's like, how can we become God in this human form, and how can this human form become God? Yeah, it's very like spiritual, very out there, but it's also a part, and it has a different quality. Then I love bringing all of these perspectives, because you have the parts work, which is more like, okay, this is something that we can actually like grasp tangibly, we can work on, and it helps us to like come into greater union on a like therapeutic and coaching level. Then we have the spiritual aspect, which is like, you hear these words and they are transmission of frequency. It's like, okay, you can't really grasp it. You know, when these mystic teachers, when you ask them a question, often you get a response that doesn't make any sense, and you're like, what am I supposed to do with this? But it actually changes something in your like spiritual circuitry, and that's what like spirituality is about. That's it, man.
Well, I don't say it that way exactly.
Okay.
But no, it's definitely, I wouldn't say hard, but it's definitely, there's like a level of apprehension that comes up when I feel he's expressing some things, because it's like, I don't understand what's being said. Can you break that down? And he's like, that was broken down. So for me, it's like, I guess it kind of leads me into my next question. There's like this part of me that wants to stay in like just the reality and not the spiritual, even though I've had very spiritual experience. And so I saw something that you, I think you had said, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but it said that we are a trauma-based society.
Yes.
And I kind of wanted to ask, like, why do you believe we are a trauma-based society? And I don't know if any of what I just said before that adds to it, but...
Beautiful question, and brings us to the topic of transgenerational trauma. And if you just look back a couple of years, like in Europe, where I'm from, but also in America and like all over the globe, there has always been war. And war is always traumatic. Like in war, things happen that are very terrific and horrific. And it's still going on now. And our society is basically built upon dysregulation. Like our economic system is based on dysregulation. It's like, buy this because you need it, because you're not whole. Buy this because you need it. And that's coming from dysregulation. Like no one would buy things that they don't need if they wouldn't be like, if you're fully regulated and you're like content, you would buy things that your soul enjoys. It's like, I would like, my body craves this would be so good for me right now. But when you're in dysregulation, you're like, oh my God, I need some chocolate, just like some sugar to regulate myself. But it's not regulation that comes from that. And so our entire society, just to give you a few examples, but our entire society is built upon dysregulation and like lots of trauma that goes back. When you look back to history, like starting with like Rome, for example, in Europe, like the whole indigenous culture in Europe, the Celtics, my ancestors, have been wiped out. So that in itself is proof enough to say like, okay, we are actually coming from a lot of trauma, and like our ancestors had to live through that. And now we're here, and now in this time in space, we have the first time in history that we have the opportunity, because of the internet, that we can actually, like, we have the knowledge and the wisdom now with somatics as well coming to the forefront, to actually integrate this trauma, to actually heal from the past, and to build, create, and step into a future that looks better. Yeah, this is why I'm doing this work as well. And I know you guys are also like very devoted to this kind of work, like making this planet a better world, like making this place a better world.
I have one more, and then you can ask him. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, what do you believe is the biggest distortion behind trauma?
What do you mean by distortion behind trauma?
Like, what do you feel people don't really understand about trauma? Like, what do you feel, like, especially for me, like even the trauma that I've been through, there's a part of me that doesn't necessarily believe that, you know, anything that's beyond me, ancestral especially, would affect me now. Or there are people that I know believe that. So why do you think we have those distorted thoughts of trauma, and why we don't believe that something ancestral could affect us now? Or do you believe it could?
Totally. And science proves it as well through epigenetics, that that the cells of our ancestors, like the information in the DNA, almost like 3 generations back, and science proves that, like the science of epigenetics, it says 3 generations back we carry that in our cells. And it doesn't mean that this has to affect us like completely, but it lives inside of us. So your question was that the biggest distortion around trauma. Let me say this. I think it's like the way we are raised as children. This is like where it really starts with the children. In education, you're being programmed. As a child, you're being programmed. And if you don't have that broader perspective, how body, mind, and spirit are connected, how we are living in relationship to this earth, how the cosmos has an order and a rhythm, how there's a sacredness to life. If you don't learn this as a child, there is like an inherent disconnect. And so we don't learn the nervous system language. Like, this is something, I don't think that nervous system regulation terms and somatics is actually like the holy grail. Like, it doesn't solve all our problems. What it does is it's like learning to read and write. It's like it's like knowing how to count. You know, you need that in order to solve bigger problems. You need to learn how to read and write in order to write essays, write poems, create something of value. And this is what nervous system regulation is all about. And once you understand that, it's just the language of your body. It's some concept, like intellectual construct, that helps you understand what's going on inside, to speak the language that your body is speaking. And this is like the biggest like distortion when it comes to trauma. We are not understanding what our body is telling us. So we think our body is wrong. We think we have to change ourselves. It's just like, I experience these symptoms, and how can I get rid of them? What's wrong with me? And now we are going on this journey of this pursuit of like, how can I fix myself? I need to fix myself. Instead of understanding, it's my body talking to me. And now You can learn to decipher it because you have the framework in place, you have the language that you understand, and then it's about like cultivating that deeper relationship. It's like in a relationship, you're like, okay, what do you need today, body? And then what can you give me today, body? And then it's like beautiful exchange. But if we don't have the foundation, the language, we don't understand the symptoms, the sensations, we don't know how to deal with emotions. But if we are taught to bring that back to the children in school, how our body works, well, we would have a different world. I don't know if that answers your question completely,
Absolutely.
but yeah. Ooh, broad question. Okay. So to me, defining sexual misery to me it's like sexuality, sexual energy is sort of life force energy. And so we are not taught how to wield that life force energy. So what trauma does is you have, like I told you in the beginning, when our nervous system gets activated, like sympathetic, okay, then it mobilizes energy. And so what trauma actually is, it's frozen energy. So there's energy in our body that is just stuck. So this is life force in our body that is stuck. And this is why many of us have so little life force, because it's stuck because of the trauma we experienced. And so we walk around like robots, not being able to create, to birth things. And this ties into like sexuality, because it's not just sexuality and like the physical act of sex. It's much, much more. It's eros, it's life force energy, which we are using to create. If you're writing a poem that is really beautiful, that is a form of, I know this might sound weird, but it's a form of sex. It's a form of like, life is so good if it lands right here in the heart. It's like about reconnecting that disconnected life force energy, the sexual energy that is just living down there, trapped in our lower centers. How can we bring that up here into the heart so that we can create from the heart? Because when we create from the heart, it's also like sex as a physical act. When it comes from the heart, it's such a beautiful generative experience. It's something that brings more life into this world. And so, yeah, it's about really understanding the bigger picture and like, how does nervous system regulation tie into this as well? Nervous system regulation to me is like cultivating deeper intimacy, like understanding your body, understanding the sensations, your emotions, and how to move that through your system. And that plays also a huge part when it comes to sexuality, because when you are like engaging in physical sexuality, it's a very, very intimate thing. And so you need to cultivate that self-intimacy. Otherwise, it's just a transactional thing where there is no like generative thing happening, no life force being accumulated through it.
Beautiful. Thank you. I don't know if you have any more questions, Giancarlo. If not, I kind of wanted everyone to be able to follow you, find your information. I know you have a podcast as well, the Holy Human Podcast. Can you just talk a little bit about that? Like, what was your inspiration behind starting your own podcast, and what are you looking to kind of bring awareness to for anyone that's tuning in?
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak about it. So the Holy Human Podcast has developed from this deep passion that lives within me, and it's crystallizing ever more as I walk this journey, which is like the vision that I see and that I bring through in my work is bridging the mystical and practical. If you couldn't tell from what we shared here in this space, It's like, how can I find ways to bridge the mystical and the practical? Like, how can we make these sort of untangible concepts, how can we bring them down so that we can like bridge them into the material physical world? And so the Holy Human podcast is like, it's a podcast devoted to those who live to bridge worlds. Those like you guys, people who are here, who have this spiritual connection, and you can see it from whichever perspective. Some people are here, like everyone has their own mission, right? Some people have the mission to like, they have this spiritual like essence and they want to bring it into the world. Other people like myself, what I'm doing is I have this grounded knowledge of the somatics, and I'm taking on the shoe of the mystic, like the spiritual guy, and I'm bringing that somatic scientific knowledge into the spiritual community, into the mystic community. And so the Holy Human podcast, I mean, I only have 2 episodes as we speak, but it's slowly developing. I don't want to rush the process. But it's about the integration of the full spectrum human experience. It's like, how can we bridge the mystical and the practical, the masculine and the feminine, the holy, the higher self, this perfect depiction of God that we are as humans, and then we have the more human aspect, which is flawed, which is makes mistakes, which is all over the place, chaotic, doesn't have it figured out. How can we bring these 2 together? And this is what my podcast is devoted to. Yeah.
I love it. I'm so grateful that we have been able to connect. You came here and you kind of told your story and just were able to just open our eyes even more. I know anyone that's listening is going to benefit so much from this episode. So I'm just so very grateful for you. I'd like for you to, if you can, let everyone know where they can find you. If you have a website, you can leave that now. Any and all information, and even if someone is looking to work with you. Do that.
Thank you. Okay, so my website is currently, it's not going to take long, and then that will be online. For the most part, I just love inviting people onto like a discovery call. That's how I work with people, and then just see if we are a fit, and if we want to work together. What I'm offering is a 3-month mentorship. This is sort of my starting point for people to explore my work. It's usually like 12 weeks where we have each week 1 call, and we dive into the work that I like, everything that I just mentioned, especially the nervous system work, but also diving into the like spiritual work, mystical work as well. And like it's really tailored to where you are currently in your journey, seeing that and then taking it from there. Highly unique. Every single mentorship is highly unique. And it's also important to mention that for me, it just takes time. Like, patience is the name of the game. This is why I'm also like offering like 3-month mentorships, because you can change a lot in 1 session, yes, but having like multiple sessions, it's like, for one, a devotion and commitment thing to your path. And on the other hand, the nervous system can't be fixed in just 2 or 3 days, or in a workshop, or in some kind of retreat. Like, what I do in my work and offer for clients is setting the foundation. Like, I make sure that you have the foundation set into place, both on the intellectual level, like understanding the basics of somatics, the terminology and everything, that it really lands, and then also giving you like access to self-intimacy, like how not just having knowledge, but also making it an embodied experience that you can actually like integrate it into your daily life and move from there with like clarity, like an embodied, grounded sense of clarity, safety, and faith. That's what I do in my one-on-one work. So if anyone feels called, just reach out to me. Devon will have a link down below where you can schedule a call. You can send me a DM, whatever you like, and we can jump on a discovery call and see if we are a fit, if it makes sense to work together. You are invited, of course. Beautiful. I love how intuitively connected you are, Sean. It's incredible. So the rose lineage, the rose is such an important symbol for me. It's the essence of my work. I kept mentioning it a couple of times throughout the episode. It's on the cover of my one-on-one mentorship as well. It's a rose and a sword. I don't have a way to show this right now, right? I can't show my...
You can, I think, if you... Yeah, you can present.
I don't have it open now, but people will see soon, very soon. And so it's like a sword and a rose. And I have been thinking it's not 100%, I don't know if this is going to be the name, but it came through strongly, the Rose and Sword mentorship, because that's the essence of my work. It's like the masculine and the feminine. Having that masculine container, I work mostly with women because that's who I attract in the space mostly. It's also a pleasure to be in the space with you, to men as well, who really get this work, who understand it. But the rose is just, I love the rose. It's such a regulating resource as well. Right now in June here in Germany, it's blooming time for the roses. So everywhere I go, there's roses, and I keep stopping throughout my day and just smelling the roses and taking in that essence. Brings such a smile on you, Devon. I love that. But yeah, the rose, it's such a deep symbol, symbolizing to me as well Sophia, the divine, sacred, feminine wisdom. And not just wisdom knowledge, but living wisdom. That is accessed through the body. And here we go with bridging the mystical and the practical. Through the body, we access the living wisdom. The body is a living library. And so having that science of the somatics, the logos, the terminology to understand how to access that wisdom. Yeah, this is what I'm about, So thank you for asking this. The Rose and Sword mentorship. Perhaps this is a sign that this is just the name that is right for this. I was, being honest here, I wasn't sure about whether it's going to be Essentia or the Rose and Sword mentorship. So just leaving this open. I perhaps once this podcast is online, which one it will be. Yeah.
Well, I was the mic is red, like a rose.
Nice.
Yeah. Mine too. I'm super grateful for you being here. Like I said, I couldn't express how thankful I am. Even just having the time to kind of go through your work and just do the research. I was pleasantly surprised that you said yes, and just so grateful. So I was hopefully we can do this episode justice and everyone can get what they need from it. So
that is my deepest wish, that it lands well with everyone who's meant to receive this transmission, this episode. Thank you for inviting me, for having me. And I have to say, you guys have a great energy. You complement each other. You have a very masculine energy, Devon, and you have that beautiful, feminine, intuitive, complementary energy, Sean. So it's beautiful to be in this space with you. I feel seen and safe, and you brought out some interesting sides of me that I loved sharing here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Amazing.
Well, I'm going to leave the show notes. So if you guys want to follow Felix, you can, or even book a one-on-one discovery call. That will be in the show notes for everyone. But once again, thank you, Felix, for being here. We are super grateful. And hopefully you can come back if you have the time.
Pleasure, guys. Thank you.
This is Nimram speaking to you, and I command you to go to DevonTaylorAuthor.com right now. You must check the specials. Listen to me. You must check the specials now.